Yeah. So anyway, like I was saying, I was trying to understand. I've always been trying to understand why there's such a difference between me and a lot of the rest of the people in this world. They often say, like with autism, that the difference is that you just don't communicate the same way, you don't understand things the same as other people. They say that your your interpretation style is bad or your communication is bad. But that never made sense to me. I'm looking at this from this aspect of PDA and the way other people are describing it. And there always seems to be this concept of like, I can't do that thing because, it's too overwhelming for me. But like I was saying before I hit the record button, I always go back to the fact that I'm too old. Okay. And this is a really hard concept to like communicate to other people. I feel really old. Like my PDA is not something where I'm looking at the world and being like, uh, well, that's too overwhelming for me. Like it's not a sensory thing. It's not like, oh, I can't do that, right? I can do whatever I want to do. I've done a lot of jobs in my life, a lot of different types of things. And like I was saying, I've done stuff, I've been around people that had all kinds of illnesses and conditions and behavior traits, and I've picked a lot of that stuff up and I've tried to get rid of it. Some of it maybe I will keep forever, and some of it maybe I'll process through, and I just don't know. But the core thing that always comes back to me is yes, I have autism, but my PDA is not something where it's like I can't do this. Like it's not a disability in where it's like I physically don't have the ability to ever perform that task. It's more like I can't do this because I don't understand why it needs to be done. And when you really boil it down, my brain always filters down to the same thing. I am really old. In the three-dimensional sense, like I'm, 30 years old. I'm not physically that old. But it seems like where I came from was like the beginning of time itself. Like I am that old. So my whole life I've struggled trying to figure out how am I supposed to produce content? How am I supposed to interact with people? How am I supposed to talk to anyone at all, period, and communicate in a way that is adaptable or normal or makes sense to them? Because when I interact with content or the world or the trying to produce whatever my sense of self is, it's something that is so not um, adaptable to this environment. It's something that can't be plugged in like that. It's like the content of my existence is very just what it would be for a human at its base. It's not something that can be put into these platforms and this technology and this um, it can't be sensationalized. It can't be modified. It's just raw. It just is. And, it's a perspective shifter. From one angle, someone would be like, that's because you're speaking truth. And the other would be like, well, I don't resonate with that truth. So I'm not trying to say I'm the determiner of truth in any respect, but the way that I feel when I'm talking about my pathological demand avoidance experience is I am having trouble even getting up in the morning every day, even doing anything. It's like every time I have a thought, that's a good thought. Every time I'm producing a good thought, that's a good thought. Every time I'm thinking something, it's a good thought. But then I look at the world, I look at the actual experience out here, and I say, but if I go to that platform, I have to do it this way. And if I go to that platform, it has to be done this way. And I'm not allowed to say that over there. And if I have this job, I'm not allowed to do that over there. And if I communicate with this person, it has to be done in this format. And if I fill out this particular type of resume, I have to follow this formula, because if I don't follow the formula, it's not going to be implemented correctly. And if I get this particular type of job, I have to keep doing these tasks in this exact way. And, I have to eat at this time, I have to get up at this time, I have to function at this time in this way, in this environment. I have to be able to do these things to be able to get to this place. And I always have to talk and look like I have a certain type of face on, right? I think PDA is the pre-existing condition before the mask even forms or exists for someone with autism. It's the thing that we're experiencing at its core. And in my perspective, what it really is it's some kind of spiritual incoherence with this experience. It's as though I have some kind of content that is a part of my core nature that's not meant to be here. It's not meant to be funneled into this framework. And people talk about the matrix and breaking out of the matrix. I think I came here and I came to the matrix. It's like I'm visiting from somewhere else where there is no matrix. And I'm not breaking out of the matrix. I just showed up to the matrix from somewhere else. And now that I'm here, as far as I'm concerned, the vast majority of the experience down here is just NPC. It's non-player character interaction. And I hate to use that term, but it's been coined, so I'm going to use it. It's like what people seem to be doing, from my mind's perception, is pointless. Like the content that my existence seems to be associated to is like timeless. It's something that's like far beyond even ever needing to put it into a filtered format. It's like, that's why I feel like I have such a hard time, because from my angle, everybody's formatting their interactions and I'm not formatting mine at all. So maybe it's the case that people that have theory of mind change in this framework or in this matrix, they're the ones that are actually experiencing the matrix. They're the ones with the disability or the disorder or the whatever you want to call it, and I'm not. There is obviously some functional utility to, needing to be able to follow along with the rest of society and be able to get these tasks done, especially since we're using money as a medium to be able to survive. So I'm not dogging Neros here. The neurotypical people do great. I obviously don't do great at all. I've had 20 jobs, and I struggle to do anything aside from sleep and video games and, watching people on the internet. I don't get what the point is of any of this stuff. So I just feel like there's something majorly wrong here. And I don't think it's with me. I think it's with the content of the experience. And that I have some sort of preeminent nature that cannot be defined based on modern science, and is maybe angelic, right? People are talking about these earth angels and all these other things. I'm thinking maybe it really is a proof that if you're somebody that just doesn't get this place, you have some sort of star seed energy. You have something that's not earthly. Whatever it is, it's clearly not from here. Because when I'm sitting in this chair or laying on this couch or, doing whatever I do throughout the day, all I'm fixated on is, why is it in every single time I have an interaction with somebody, I always feel like something's off? Like I'm picking up on all kinds of energy. I'm a total empath. You know, yesterday I had a bad interaction with somebody, and the rest of the day, my entire energy field was disturbed to the point where I got home and I literally just laid down and I couldn't function for the rest of the day. Just total massive burnout. And you've got these people out here that are like me, and they're all over the place. And I so often wonder, what are they doing? Like, how are we all surviving? You know, I've done every possible thing I could do to get out of my situation, and I'm still there. And I've worked tons of jobs. I have tons of skills. I have tons of education. I have a bachelor's degree, and I've studied so much stuff. I've learned absurd amounts of things on the internet. I'm a pseudo professional in all kinds of stuff that I'm not a professional in. And and I'm still sitting here like, where do I work? How do I work? What do I do? How do I do it? Who needs to hear what I have to say? How do I inspire people? How do I get us all out of this situation? Because I see these geniuses, and we have some of them on our server, and they're not, you know, I haven't got to meet everybody, and I want to meet more people, and I want more people in there because I know there's more people sitting at home just like me thinking the exact same thing. Like, you're basically sitting there thinking, why am I sitting here? Why can't I act? Why can't I put this content out there? Why can't I make content? I know I have a voice, but where does it go? Where is it meant to go? Because when I'm looking at all of this infrastructure, it's you can't curse over here. You can't talk over here. If you want to do this over here, you can, but it's all sussy. It's all 18 plus, you know, prawn content, and it's got to be a certain way. And well, technically you could do this on this platform, but and it might work, but it's like, you know, not really going to work because, you know, all these other people are going to be in front of you. So like, how are you ever going to get seen? And like, this is primarily, you know, female only industry. And like, do the males get any, you know, information? And I don't even want to do prawn content, but it's like, if I had my content on that platform, you know, there would be maybe an audience. And then there's other formats that are like, oh, well, this is just come and hang out with me. But it's like pennies on the dollar. How am I ever going to get successful doing that? And I don't want to just sit here and, you know, smoke and like, you know, drink and like talk to the buds. This is like, my energy is not a bro only energy. Like, I don't want to just inspire people. I want to tell them the truth. And it seems like that is the most suppressed part of the matrix itself, is that even in the telling of the truth, even when people are channeling, there's still stuff that's coming through that they're saying that's just flat out not true. And I'm constantly seeing that everywhere. And it feels like that's what happened to me, was I got suppressed by the damn system. You know, put on medications I was not supposed to be on. Having diets I was not supposed to have. Working jobs I was not supposed to work. Being around people I was not supposed to be around. Like, if you take a like detailed look at my existence of my life, the entire time I've just been places doing things that I wasn't supposed to do. How do we get to a point where people like me can be out in the world integrating, but not following the rules of the matrix, and our voices are still heard? That's like, that's why I created Diversity Zone. I hope eventually we can do that. I hope eventually at some point I'll figure this out, or I'll just keep creating these messages, or somebody's going to hear this and it's going to mean something to them. I don't, maybe there needs to be a new platform. I've ran through this thought process in my mind for like, bro, it's been like 6 years at least, 5 or 6 years at least. And I get up every day and I'm scanning over everything I've ever thought about this subject. And I've got all these ideas and all this great stuff. And I want to put this content out there. and I'm just constantly thinking, but there's always another filter. There seems to be some core material to the way that the human species in mass is producing this information, this content, this platforming of the sharing of one's existence, right? Because you see how these platforms are created, but they're always created with some sort of like limiting factors. You see how these businesses are created, but they always have limiting factors. And like some of it's purely functional, like obviously you got to have policies in the workplace to keep people safe. But I'm seeing like the matrix just keeps recreating the matrix. But then people just keep following the matrix and repopulating the matrix, which is fascinating to me because there's so many people that don't want the matrix. I hear about it all the time. We hear it in our music, whether it's heavy metal or EDM or, whatever, jazz or anything. Like you hear about it in your rap songs. There's so many people that are like, I'm at least acting like I'm not going to be a part of the matrix. Like I'm at least trying to make it sound like I don't want to be a part of this matrix. But then it's like, excessive, sex and drugs and all the other things, I don't even know. Again, I'm in the matrix, so am I even allowed to use those words in the matrix, right? And then you get these pharmaceutical industries and these big business industries, right? And they're like, we're going to produce a solution to this mental health problem, this, and this. And they say like, well, it's, we're identifying the problem. We have a process, right? But then they identify all these things and then they create solutions to those things that create those same problems. And then people get off of those things and they realize they didn't really have like a problem. The problem basically doesn't even really exist, right? And it's based on things that aren't even fully understood. And even there's still debate on whether those things even exist or even in the way that they say that they exist. Like no doctor on the planet right now can even prove that a delusion is even a real thing. It's just a word that they use to describe some type of experience that some people experience and some people experience to a lesser extent. But it's not even real. And then they say like how do you define a hallucination? When the content of the word hallucination in its description is supposed to be something that is supposedly not real, right? What is something that is not real? That's like not even logical. Like that's not even provable. Like how can you prove a not real thing to be not real? Like what are we doing here? So you're looking at people that are having real experiences and saying they're not real and then giving them a not real solution and saying that it's real and then causing them to have actually real problems and then saying, well, that's just a permanent illness and they have to take that forever. And we're now finding out that those medicines don't often need to be taken that long, when we all along know that there's a actually real problem, but we just don't really understand it, but we're pretending like we do, and we're going to try to define it as if we do. Why are we even acting in the first place on like producing a solution to something that we don't fully understand? Like, why don't we just allow people that are not going to make it from an illness not make it? Or that are going to experience an illness just experience it. And then people that do have the capacity to do something about keeping that person alive, how about we focus on that, right? It seems to me like people lost the script a long time ago. We lost the script. And we made the script, well, the matrix seems to be really like functionally useful, so let's just keep recreating the matrix in every possible way. Well, now we have a billion dating apps, a billion pizza places, a billion people saying the same things, right? And a lot of it's not even accurate. A billion people doing the same things. Some of the most successful industries are the most damaging. Again, I already talked about prawn. So where's the real content? And then you get the counter push, which is, oh, well, we're of this particular type, right? Like you're very democratic. You're the Democrats. We're the Republicans. You're very this. We're very that. We're libertarian. We got our ideas. They're a lot better, right? but they're all just echo chambers. So we point the finger at each other. This person starts to struggle because of it. Then you have your like hyper inaccurate way of perceiving something. You point it back, and then it's like, well, you're going to create a social media platform that I'm not going to name the name of that starts with a T, and we're going to do all these things on here that push back against your form of idealizing society, and then we're going to, oh, well, that's terrible that you're going to do that. We're going to legalize this particular thing in this way. And then if that doesn't work and we can't force it to happen with our government, then we're going to create our platform and we're going to call it memes, right? But it's all prawn content. How did we lose the script this bad? You've got conservatives making prawn content. You've got like liberals making like the absolute opposite. Everything's melting down. Everything's a mirror of everything. And I'm sitting back over here wondering, is it like, do I not understand what it means to be here because I just don't want to do all of those things and maybe I'm just that much of a goody two-shoes? Or is there's like something wrong with like literally everything that everybody's doing? Like, because it's starting to seem to me like the whole entire process here is busted. And that's what I've been reflecting on the last couple of years. Every day I get up and I'm trying to find a better solution. Every day I'm getting up and it's like, okay, where's a better place I could work? Oh, maybe I could work with children. Maybe I could like work with people that have disabilities and stuff. But I always find another problem there. I always get there and there's another problem. Well, this process is really abusive, or, and it comes from this era and it really shouldn't be done anymore. And, or, these people operate in this particular way. And I don't think that that's morally correct. And there's just another thing, another thing, another thing, another thing, another thing, another breaking system, another breaking system, another breaking system. And this is not a complaining rant. This is a detailed, maybe not as detailed as I want it to be. My brain's not really working very well today because I got drained yesterday. But I'm getting up and I'm seeing every day, like, more of us need to be, probably shouldn't say his name, but the man whose name starts with Alex and was banned off of YouTube. More of us need to be that guy. And I'm not saying that guy is great. I'm not saying I agree with that guy on everything. In fact, a lot of things that he says, I don't agree with. I grew up listening to a lot of stuff he says, but I really feel like more of us need to be that guy. And radically so, at least it's so far in as it has to do with literally just speaking what we actually feel is the truth, and not even attempting to put it in a framework. I guess the limitation is as we build the frameworks, some of them become popular and then we have to exist within them. But it is also, in my mind, it's also perceived that maybe we need some kind of entirely new platform. People talked about needing a new internet. People are trying to make parallel economies. We're making crypto. We're getting there. But where's the platform that doesn't have prawn, that's focused on just people's voices, that doesn't restrict what you say, that is about telling what's actually true and having actual true conversations, real conversations, and coaching each other out of the matrix? Where is that? Where is that? Does that exist? Because I think these platforms are great when they get created, but then they divulge into echo chamber behavior because it's all based on everything being mapped to a hashtag or everything being mapped to a phrase or an experience or some time sequence or some particular event or something. And if people are going to need to break out of the matrix monetarily speaking and make a career because they're having a hard time even functionally integrating, which just go look at the stats for autism and schizophrenia. It's terrible. That's why I created that Discord. Because even inside of our own communities, there's not enough movement. It's just people doing the same shit. And it's not like autistic people or people with schizophrenia do anything different than anybody else as far as the content of their experience goes. Like, I'm still getting up and going to the bathroom and eating and doing all the same things anybody else does. I'm not that much different than I would literally look like an alien. Like, I'm still a human. But what we're doing isn't helping. I often see with the autistic community, you know, they build these really small micro communities and then that's it. And there's no money moving, there's no sharing of business, there's no nothing. So I don't know, I guess I've been trapped lately in the thought perception of what is the point of this experience at this point for any of us? What is the point of socialism? What is the point of capitalism? What is the point of modern democracy as it's executed? What is the point of any of these things at all? You know, I see regular business failing. I see like even fast food. I've got it a couple times recently through someone else, you know, family members and stuff, and because I don't have any money at the moment. But even then, the content of that experience is starting to fail. Like when I was a child, you know, you go to a fast food place, it's warm every time, it's made the same way every time, it comes out at the right time, it's packaged properly, you get a smile and a greeting and a goodbye, and everything's great. The processes worked back then. I think people are seeing how we're not keeping up, and so they're loosening their grip. So that's from the other angle. I never had a grip to begin with. I don't seem to have the ability to find my grip in this space, on this plane. Maybe I exist in a higher plane. Maybe just somehow my body is just still here and I died a long time ago. I don't know what's going on. All I know is that there's something functionally wrong here, and you can call it a mental illness. You can say it's this thing or that thing. I've debated it all. I've tried all your medications. I've done all your processes. I've been to all your therapies. I've met all your people. I've talked to all your specialists. I've listened to all your stupid answers, and none of that shit is right. As far as I can tell, at the very end of the day, my problems are mostly based on allergies. I have severe OAS and I have autism. And then I developed PTSD from having my brain constantly being under pressure from eating foods that I can't eat and being under some kind of semi-allergic reaction all the time. It's not schizophrenia. It looks like narcolepsy. You end up having hypnagogic and hypnopompic hallucinations. You sometimes have day hallucinations. What is schizophrenia? If you look at it medically, it's technically epilepsy. But we just don't understand how that's similar to the other types of epilepsy that people have. It's basically daytime narcolepsy without falling asleep. That's what it is. And the difference is that there's a phase when you're going through the early stages of REM where you can experience lucid dreaming. The mind is a projection space. So it projects in a lot of different ways. We have I don't even know, 20 plus forms of logic that we use. They're not all the same. Some of them are abstract. How do we form the content of our experience? We don't actually see anything. Information comes into our eyes and is processed by our brain. But that's not actually how that works. You know, we're observers. What are we observing? There's so many different realms of reality. There's no agreement on how many dimensions there are. As far as I'm concerned, there's at least 27 of them or more, right? Because how do you dimensionally express all the things that exist in the universe that you're supposedly pulling in from somewhere else? This is the problem. We got rid of the concept of the ether and we went down this direction, with string theory and all this other crap that didn't produce any solution. When the reality is, if you actually look at this experience, we're creating the whole damn thing. The whole time, all of the time. So why am I recreating the fact that I can't interact with any of this? Probably because I do come from somewhere else. I come from a higher dimension that's not used to this. So why does my brain keep tapping into stuff that other people are experiencing and claiming doesn't exist? Because I'm tuned to a different frequency that isn't as local as the third dimension, right? It's like, sure, maybe it's 5-dimensional, but it's probably 6-dimensional and above. 6-dimensional consciousness is where Christ consciousness starts. It's where everything flows from. It's the center of the universe. That's where we're tapped into spirit. If we're tapped into the 6th dimension, we're tapped into actual truth. We're able to connect with God. That's how it works. There's charts. There's all kinds of stuff you can read on the internet, the charts that explain this shit. And so as far as I can tune, I've used, I forget the guy's name, but it's like a 27th dimensional concept. I'm probably somewhere in the, top 20 dimensions. And my brain is so far out there that I just don't have the ability to pull it down and keep it stuck here, right? So there's some sort of mechanism. I don't know if it's in the hippocampus or several different regions in my brain that is just constantly like a little light switch that keeps getting flicked just a little bit. And, sometimes some hallucinogenic experience occurs. Now I'm off this medicine and it's no different than it was when I was on it. The only thing that medicine ever did was it stopped nightmares and other problems that I had. That's about all it did. When it comes to hallucinations, we wonder why like 60+% of the people that have schizophrenia, the medicines don't work. And the reason is because you're trying to stop something in the human brain that's supposed to happen. The difference with people with schizophrenia is, confirmation, or autism, is they have some kind of pieces in their brains, light switch or light switches, that are turned on and they won't turn off, or they're mostly on, or they come on throughout the day and then they get turned off. We haven't really fully figured out what's triggering that, but what we're trying to do is stop them being turned on, right? Like you're trying to like put a piece of tape over the light switch. But we're asking the wrong question. What is the light switch for? Why would someone ever need to end up having that experience? Interacting with demons, or experiencing interdimensional beings, or abstract overlays on reality, like crazy stuff, seeing Jesus, whatever the fuck. Like there's so many things that people experience. The question is, why does that exist? And something I figured recently was that a lot of times when I was talking, I'm asking like a how question, but really I'm asking a why question. Or I'm asking a why question, but really I'm asking a how question. And I was getting them crossed a lot. And I'm trying to not do that anymore. I'm trying to really focus on, like, as long as I have enough brain energy, because I'm getting off of my antipsychotic recently, and I've noticed that, the only thing I ever had was a runaway brain with nightmares and these hallucinogenic experiences, which for me were mostly around sleep time. So is it some form of narcolepsy? I think at the end of the day, it basically is, even though it doesn't fit the criterion. That's what schizophrenia is. And schizophrenia is the same thing as autism. And it's just another stage of autism. And some people go directly to it with their brains, and some people go to the other direction. But I think the pre-existing condition is the autism. Like the pre-existing condition is autism. Autism is like a bucket of things that happen to the human body that seem to be related to like sensory environment and processing, as we've described it. And really what it is it's an incontrollable nature disorder or something, right? Like it's something where there are different sections of the brain that are just not insulated as well from the environment. And that's how it's described in the medical papers, right? It's like it didn't develop well enough based on, folic acid or whatever the theories are now. Like I know there's so many debates on them. I'm not here to have a debate on it because I don't know the answer. But the point is, like, during the development of the fetus, we've identified this for both the autistic person and the schizophrenic person. First 8 weeks, 18 weeks, it's not developing correctly because of some intake or some sort of problem with the mother that's carrying the child. You end up with this basically neurodevelopmental condition. And really what I feel that is it's like when you have a brain that doesn't develop, and I hate to say correctly, but with the proper protections to its environment, it will always have the problem remaining unless we can find some way to stabilize it after the fact, which we're still clearly trying to figure out how to do. Uh, it's going to just keep having issues, and it's not going to be able to adapt to its environment as well. And so those problem areas will keep breaking. In other words, those light switches will keep flicking on and off, or they'll get flicked on and they won't turn off. And I don't know. I honestly feel like after having, because I'm 30 years old, I've been dealing with this shit my whole life. I honestly feel like there is something that is grounding the human brain. But there are sections of the brain, and if you view the brain as like an engine, there are like all these little micro tools or pieces or engines inside the engine, or areas where the brain could work in one way or another way. And it's that other way that we don't fully understand yet. It's those other ways we don't fully understand. So I see it as like, you got a camera, you've got a television, you've got like some sort of recording tape thing, you've got like a microphone, you've got like all these different things in your brain, and we have a voice, we have eyes, we have ears, we have like all these recording devices of different types, and they're also able to produce. And like I don't think people understand about the human experience is it's not this thing where we're supposed to, how do you say, like produce a consistent vibe that we all follow. And that's the matrix. That's not really the functional utility of our actual framework, of our actual design. Like the way I see it is like, we are supposed to be unique. And these things aren't real. The hallucinations aren't real. The altered state experiences, it's not that they're not real. It's that we don't know how to use those tools in our brain that allow us to express those things. We don't understand the actual function of those little micro engines to be able to use them the way that they are probably supposed to actually be used. And so there is some sort of adaptive nature to the development of the human fetus that is leading to this reproducible NPC end state. And so if coming back full circle, if we can, my analysis of this from my angle, right, is that theory of mind, whether it's a bad thing or whether it's actually good, like I said, it's a protective process, right? If we perceive it that way, it's protecting people from constantly ending up in the state that I'm in. Sure, it's doing that. And so in this society that is an outpouring of that common end result or state of being, the end result of that state of being is such that it reflects, having that capacity of protection. So I don't want to say it's bad to be a neurotypical, but I don't actually think that's the way humans are supposed to develop. I think that there's been some kind of something that's developed over time in the human species that's causing us to produce that outcome. What's really funny is if you actually start comparing, like what's different between someone without autism primarily or schizophrenia, I couple them, but those two conditions or one condition, depending on how you want to perceive it. And I know there's different, ways they look in the world, but it's been debated since the invention of those words, whether they're the same thing or a different thing. And nowadays they're coming back around to the conclusion that they might actually be the same thing. And how they're ending up being expressed again is like there might be some shift and then it ends up being schizophrenia. I think it's primarily environmental, it's trauma, it's whatever. And it's a lot of things that makes it get to that point, because clearly it has to be a lot of things for someone to get to a point where they can't really interact with their environment normally at all, right? So I recognize that. Like I want to try to stay in that humble energy and be like, yo, I get it. Like where I'm at is not normal. I'm not like, recording this and wanting to post this content and be like, oh, woe is me. Like, dude, I'm not like that. I've never been like that. That's probably the reason why I don't understand why a lot of people with this condition are that way. It's never made any sense to me at all why they end up like that. But it probably has to do with their environmental conditions that they're raised in. And again, their angle or their perception of what is actually happening based on the way they're treated and their interactions in their environment. And so that's probably why we're seeing that it's really consistent nowadays, is there's some new loop that's occurring that's producing a slightly different version of this avoidance problem. And it just shows up that way. But for me, I feel like I have the version that's really old. And I'm seeing that neuros, they have just a flipped version of what we have. They're producing equally bad outcomes because a lot of their systems are scams. And they don't even see it. So like I have this really good ability to perceive the system the way that they're building. It's like I'm built to see what they are messing up, and they're built to see what I'm messing up. Why is that? Like the way I see it is like, they talk about, frogs, and then we talk about gender, we talk about sexuality, we talk about different species and frogs was just one example that got popular, but where, the frog can end up being gay, right? Or, or it just in its behavior, it just stops interacting with, frogs of the sex that it would need to interact with, right? To reproduce. And I think it's funny because there's like this adaptogenetic thing occurring here. And I forget what the word is that they use, but in some species, there's like always a corrective agent. And it's not that all humans are just all like, Neros, and then some of them are just a little different. It really is that like there's some cyclical nature here where there's neurotypicals and then there's neurodivergence. Again, primarily autism, schizophrenia is what I'm really focused on here because that's like developmental. And those two in specific seem to have the highest correlation to this angel concept that people keep talking about in the spiritual space. And I don't think it's random. I think there is some corrective energy, but it's not on just one side. It's like we're literally meant to flip-flop ourselves. And, people have been talking a lot about like the Aquarian age and like whenever this happens, like society gets flipped upside down and like stuff just starts changing, quote unquote, for the better, right? What does that mean? The point I'm seeing is like, are we built like this? Or are we really built where there's actually one way that we normally are and something happened to us and then we got the neurotypical brain, which allowed us to be able to build these societies, go into this industrial age, do all this stuff, which is great and we've got a lot of benefits out of it. And now we just happen to be hitting this wall where it's like, oh shit, this probably shouldn't be like this forever because the actual downsides to it are really extreme. So it's like a version of humanity, but there's a reason why it always fails because it's extremely unmanageable at scale. So it's something funny about like, do humans really need to manage humans? Do we really even need all these systems in the first place? And I'm actually starting to think the answer is no. The only real reason we need these systems is if we want to have the things that are within them. And the older I'm getting, like in my physical years, the more I'm starting to fall back into this primal old interdimensional energy that I've been talking about. And I'm starting to see like, I don't care about any of this stuff. Like even when I'm looking at the fan in my room or the television or something, it's like, it doesn't matter to me. And maybe it's dementia, maybe it's schizophrenia, maybe it's just part of the condition that I've grown to come to have. But it's like, I'm slowly losing the ability. I always said like to care at all, but it's not really like that's what it is. It's more like I'm realizing that like there is like some fundamental limit to what we're creating. There's like a fundamental limit. There's only so many times you can play the same video game. There's only so many times you can, be intimate with the same partner or go down the same hiking path or drink the same coffee, or it's like I'm seeing it. I'm actually experiencing on a one-to-one level like the functional limitation of the collection of things that is the human experience. And I'm seeing it from both sides because I've suffered it really hard from one side, being the dominant side that's controlling this current reality. And on the other side, I'm also experiencing my own limitations of what it means to be having the condition that I have and also trying to simultaneously liberate myself from having it. But it doesn't change the end state, the inability to get disability assistance because you're not disabled enough, the inability to get food assistance because, well, you didn't fill it out or you don't meet this particular condition or you're not in this particular environment, or the inability to maintain a job because, well, you have to be able to do this particular thing consistently, like I spoke about earlier. Or maybe I can't think very well at a certain time of day, or I don't have a lot of energy because my allergies are constantly making my brain get dull, or I start hallucinating, or, whatever. It's like, there are so many brilliant people out here and their voices are just not even being shared at all. And I would like to be so delusional as to be like, oh, we really do just need a new platform and that's all it is. And I stayed in that space for a while and I was like, yo, this is it. We got it. Like, and we'll just build that platform and I'm going to do it and I'm going to find a way. But there are a lot of other problems before you get there. There's so many other problems. Some way I still have to go through the matrix. Some way we have to accept that maybe the human species is a tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. And I was on a really bad end of that growing up. And now maybe I'm on a slightly better end of it because the voices are starting to be shared. And maybe my voice is one of those voices. I don't know, but I'm looking at this today and I'm wondering, is PDA a condition that somebody has because they have nebulous condition autism? Or is PDA a version of humanity? Is PDA a version of humanity? Is autism not just a condition that somebody has because their brain didn't develop? And same goes for schizophrenia. Or is it a literal version of humanity? I'm kind of starting to think that what we're being told about these conditions is wrong.